At 5:16 local time, the sea appears almost perfectly calm. The carrier moves at a steady pace. The flight deck is quiet. Routine watch changes are halfway through the morning cycle. Beneath the surface, there is nothing to see. No wake, no disturbance, only open water. Then the sound shifts. Inside the sonar room, a low-frequency return slips into the operator's headset. Thin, controlled, and unmistakably wrong. It is not marine life, and it is not background noise. The tone lingers longer than it should. Clean, precise, intentional. The operator says nothing at first. He adjusts the gain. The signal remains. Another sweep confirms it. The contact is deep, in motion, and picking up speed. On the display, a faint line begins to extend forward. Its vector is stable. Its heading is exact. This is not drift. This is not debris. Whatever is down there has chosen its course. At 5:17, the console light changes from green to amber. The shift moves through the ship faster than any alarm ever could. In the Combat Information Center, conversations stop in the middle of sentences. A watch officer straightens. A hand hovers motionless above a keyboard. No one needs to raise their voice. New subsurface contact, comes the call. Flat, controlled, stripped of emotion. The carrier does not alter course. Not yet. More sensors begin feeding in. Passive arrays sharpen the bearing. Timestamps narrow. The contact speed increases again, smoothly, steadily, without hesitation or random movement. This is powered travel. On the bridge, the captain watches the repeater in silence. The picture is already clear. The contact is closing from depth, holding a constant intercept line, still distant and still outside any defensive trigger point. But intent does not need close range to be understood. At 5:18, the ship's internal posture changes. Not to full alert, not even close. Just enough for every critical station to be manned by someone no longer thinking about breakfast. On the hangar deck, a maintenance crew pauses as the lighting subtly shifts in tone. Above them, the flight deck remains motionless. Aircraft stay parked, chained, silent. From the outside, nothing seems different. Inside, everything has changed. The contact holds its depth, then begins a gradual climb. Not a rush, not a sprint, but a measured ascent, meant to preserve guidance and energy. Whoever launched it did not want raw speed. They wanted certainty. Classify track. The order comes and the system responds, comparing signatures, ruling out false positives, narrowing the possibilities. This is no exercise. At 5:20, the classification locks. No one needs to announce it. The label on the screen says enough, and the room absorbs it without visible reaction. There is no shock now, only confirmation. A torpedo, not lost, not wandering, not searching at random. It is following a clean solution directly toward the carrier's projected path. Distance still leaves options. Time still exists. But the margin is no longer theoretical. On an escort ship off the starboard quarter, the same silence settles in. Data links flicker with fresh inputs. The formation tightens so slightly, it is almost impossible to notice. Steel shifts around the carrier like a reflex. No weapons are launched, no countermeasures yet. For now, this phase is about watching. At 5:21, the torpedo gains speed again. That is the moment the room changes. Not outwardly, not emotionally, procedurally. The track is no longer being judged as a possibility. It is now active, committed. The math has collapsed into a single line, and that line points only one way, toward the carrier. A junior officer glances at the range display, then looks away. He already understands what it means. The torpedo is still minutes out, but it has crossed the line where intent can no longer be denied. The captain finally speaks. One sentence. Calm, precise. No one repeats it. Systems acknowledge, screens update. Somewhere deep inside the ship, mechanisms unlock and wait in silence. They do not move until ordered. They never move too soon. At 5:22, the water above the torpedo remains perfectly undisturbed. Passengers on a commercial vessel miles away would see nothing except empty sea. No plume, no trace, no sign that steel is cutting through the depths toward one of the most heavily protected ships on Earth. Inside the carrier, no one is watching the ocean. Every eye is fixed on the line. By now, the water itself no longer matters. What is coming has no intention of stopping on its own. At 5:23, the numbers begin to tighten. Range falls in clean, predictable steps. Bearing remains steady. Depth stays disciplined, just below the layer where surface noise might interfere. Whoever programmed this weapon understood the water. This is not a desperate shot. Inside the Combat Information Center, the track is no longer treated as a contact. It is treated as a system. Inputs stack one after another in quiet succession. Speed, depth, thermal gradient, bearing drift. Each update sharpens the picture and strips away the last traces of doubt. The torpedo is not searching. It is navigating. The carrier stays on course, deliberately. Any sudden maneuver now would create more problems than solutions. Evasion comes later, if it comes at all. Right now, clarity matters more than motion. On the screen, a thin projection line extends from the torpedo's icon. It intersects the carrier's predicted path, not at the bow, not at the stern, but squarely amidships. No one reacts. The detail simply confirms what they already know. At 5:24, the ship's data links flash again. Escort vessels feed in matching tracks. Different sensors, different angles, same answer, no divergence, no confusion. The chain remains intact. The weapon's guidance is stable. Back in the sonar room, the operator adjusts the filters, pulling the signature clear of the background noise. Now the sound is unmistakable, a mechanical pulse, steady and efficient, moving through the water with purpose. Not the frantic pattern of a seeker hunting blindly. This one already knows where it is going. The time to intercept display drops below 4 minutes. No one says it out loud. The carrier's defensive posture shifts into its next layer. Not weapons, calculation. Algorithms recast intercept windows again and again. Countermeasure envelopes appear, vanish, then return in new shapes. Every option is examined, but none is chosen lightly. Each decision carries a price. At 5:25, the torpedo changes depth by only a few meters. It is a subtle move, easy to miss, but critically important. The adjustment places it inside a cleaner acoustic channel, cutting through interference from surface turbulence. That single refinement says more than any flag or transmission ever could. This is not a warning. This is a firing solution. On the bridge, the captain studies the updated track without a trace of emotion. He has seen patterns like this before, in training scenarios, simulations, and carefully controlled exercises in cold water. This time, it is real. The carrier's escorts shift again, tightening their spacing just enough to bring overlapping coverage into effect. No ship breaks formation, no one surges forward. This is not a pursuit, it is a net. At 5:26, the torpedo's speed settles into a constant pace. That matters even more than acceleration. A stable velocity means the guidance has found its rhythm. The weapon is no longer making aggressive corrections. It is no longer searching for confidence. It has it. Inside the CIC, a watch officer notes the change and says nothing. He does not need to. The data is already saying everything. The range keeps falling. 3 minutes. Somewhere below decks, a sailor secures a loose tool without being told. Another tightens a strap. No one issues these commands. They are habits, small rituals learned the hard way and remembered under pressure. Above, the flight deck remains silent. Aircraft stay chained in place. There will be no launch into this moment. Air power cannot solve an underwater problem this late in the sequence. At 5:27, the torpedo climbs again. Shallow, controlled, deliberate. It is positioning for terminal guidance. This is where the chain becomes hardest to break. Passive tracking now edges toward the possibility of active homing. The weapon is close enough that it could activate its own sensors at any moment. If that happens, reaction time collapses. The carrier's systems prepare for that possibility in total silence. No alarms, no klaxons. The ship does not broadcast fear. Time to intercept drops below 2 minutes. On the tactical display, the solution cone narrows into a thin wedge. There are fewer places left to hide and fewer options that do not demand commitment. This is where hesitation becomes fatal. At 5:28, the torpedo holds its line. No erratic motion, no sudden surge, no dramatic final sprint, just steady closure. It has entered the window where physics begins to take over. Even if guidance failed now, momentum alone could carry it dangerously close. That is the reality the crew is working inside. The captain gives another short order. Again, no explanation follows. Everyone who needs to understand already does. Systems acknowledge. Counters begin to arm but remain inactive. They will stay that way until the last possible moment, because the next move, whatever form it takes, will decide whether this remains a silent contest of sensors and discipline, or becomes something far louder. And now, the clock is no longer measured in minutes. At 5:29, the math stops being theoretical. Range falls through the final buffer where time still forgives hesitation. From this point on, every second removes another option. The track remains clean, bearing unchanged, depth exact. The torpedo is no longer just approaching the carrier's projected path. It is converging on it. Inside the Combat Information Center, the display refreshes again. The projected intercept tightens into a narrow corridor that leaves no room for interpretation. The weapons line does not wander. It does not probe. It does not test alternatives. It commits. Time to intercept drops below 90 seconds. No one says it aloud. The number needs no voice. It sits on the display, red, final, absolute. A countdown without sound. On the bridge, the captain shifts his weight slightly, eyes never leaving the repeater. He does not ask for recommendations. That stage has already passed. The recommendations have been processed, ranked, dismissed, or held in reserve by the system and the people guiding it. This is no longer a debate. The torpedo makes a subtle correction, almost invisible to anyone without training. A fractional change in depth, a slight adjustment in heading. The move is surgical, not desperate. It is compensating for a variable the carrier introduced earlier without changing course. That matters. It means the weapon is not estimating. It knows. At 5:30, the escorts reach their final positions. Overlapping fields align, distances compress. Steel settles into a pattern designed to absorb shock without multiplying chaos. No ship accelerates. No ship turns sharply. They hold. The carrier holds steady as well. A sudden maneuver now could expose weak geometry, create acoustic spikes, or fracture coordination at the exact moment unity matters most. Movement is still a tool, but only when used at the right second. That second has not come yet. In the sonar room, the operator hears the tone sharpen. It is no longer simply there. Now it presses. The mechanical pulse carries a kind of confidence that removes the last uncertainty about intent. This is not a seeker drifting through darkness. This is a guided system riding a solution it fully trusts. Time to intercept crosses 60 seconds. This is the line. Beyond it, physics takes control. Reaction windows collapse. Defensive layers now overlap so tightly that a single mistake could trigger the next one instantly. The captain speaks again. One sentence, not loud, not dramatic, no mention of weapons or targets. He names a condition, a posture, the moment the ship moves from watching to preparing. Across the carrier, acknowledgements pass in silence. Systems shift. Safeties disengage. Doors that never move unless ordered unlock and wait. Somewhere deep below, a mechanism hums to life. Not firing, not transmitting, simply ready. At 5:31, the torpedo climbs into its terminal band. This is the phase where many weapons reveal themselves. A burst of active sonar, a sudden sprint, a final attempt to lock on before countermeasures spread through the water. This one does neither. It stays quiet, and that restraint is more dangerous than speed. The carrier's sensors search for even the faintest sign of an emission. None appears. The torpedo is relying on inertial guidance, stored calculations, and absolute confidence in where the carrier will be when it arrives. Time to intercept drops below 40 seconds. There is no advantage left in waiting, but there is still danger in moving too soon. The captain looks at the clock once, and only once. Then his eyes return to the track. He already knows exactly how much time remains. When he gives the order, it is brief, precise, and final. This is the last moment in which control still exists on this side of the engagement. At 5:32, the ship responds. Not violently, not visibly, no plume breaks the surface, no weapon launches, no explosion rips through the water. Instead, the carrier attacks the weapon at the one point that matters most: guidance. The response is measured, layered, and carefully restrained. The goal is not destruction. The goal is confusion. To break the certainty the torpedo has relied on. To place doubt where none existed before. The systems activate in sequence, never all at once. Every step is calibrated to reveal as little as possible. This is not force, it is discipline, and for the first time since detection, the torpedo reacts. Its line wavers, only slightly, but enough to matter. In the sonar operator's headset, the sound changes. Subtle but unmistakable. The steady mechanical rhythm falters, recovers, then falters again. The weapon is still fast, still dangerous, but it is no longer completely sure. The time to intercept keeps falling, 30 seconds. The torpedo tries to recover. It adjusts depth again, sharper this time. The move is no longer elegant. It is compensating, a sign that the solution it trusted is beginning to slip. The carrier holds course. No sudden turn, no panic maneuver. Because this is no longer about outrunning steel underwater. It is about forcing a machine to doubt what it thinks it knows. And in the next few seconds, that doubt will decide everything. At 5:33, certainty begins to break. Not all at once. Not dramatically, just enough. In the sonar room, the tone shifts again, this time unevenly. The clean, confident rhythm that defined the contact over the past several minutes begins to fragment. It is still there, still fast, still dangerous, but it no longer sounds certain. The countermeasures continue, layered, restrained, precise. Nothing explosive, nothing violent. only enough interference to make the torpedo question the picture it has trusted since launch. The weapon responds by climbing. It is a natural choice, a move toward clearer water, toward better returns. But the ocean above is no longer telling the truth. What the torpedo expects to find and what its sensors are now receiving no longer match. On the display, the line bends, only a few degrees at first, a correction made under the assumption that the problem is temporary. The torpedo is still trying to save its original solution. The carrier does not move. At 5:34, the torpedo adjusts again, this time with more urgency. Speed begins to fluctuate. Depth starts to oscillate. These are not signs of collapse. They are signs of effort. The system is working harder than it ever intended to. The escorts hold formation. No ship breaks pattern. No one allows relief to show. This stage is too fragile for that. One bad input, one overcorrection, and the weapon could lock cleanly again. Inside the Combat Information Center, a watch officer marks the change in behavior. He does not smile. He does not relax. He knows this is the moment when weapons become dangerous in a different way. The torpedo's guidance tries to regain control. It sweeps wider, sampling the acoustic field one more time, searching for a way to rebuild confidence. But every sweep costs efficiency. Every correction bleeds momentum. The time to intercept begins to stretch, not by much, but enough. At 5:35, the sound in the sonar operator's headset fractures again. What was once a solid mechanical pulse now carries gaps. Tiny pauses, brief hesitations, moments where the weapon is forced to recalculate against a picture that no longer matches what it was built to expect. The torpedo is still moving toward the carrier, but it is no longer moving toward certainty. The carrier's systems remain steady. No escalation, no extra layers, no unnecessary force. The response stays disciplined, designed to let the weapon defeat itself. This is not about overpowering the torpedo, it is about outlasting its confidence. At 5:36, the weapon makes its largest correction yet. The track veers noticeably to port, then snaps back. The movement is no longer smooth. Now it is reactive. The torpedo is chasing a solution that keeps shifting just beyond its reach. In the CIC, the projected intercept point slides off the carrier's path. Not far, not safe yet, but no longer fatal. The captain watches the display without expression. He says nothing. He offers no praise. He understands the danger remains until the contact is no longer a contact at all. Then the torpedo's speed begins to fall. Not a shutdown, not a failure, a choice. The system is reallocating power to sensing and processing. But that choice has a cost. It costs range, it costs time, it costs options. At 5:37, the sound begins to fade, not disappear. Fade. The mechanical pulse weakens, stretched thin by repeated corrections and wasted energy. The system is still active, but its world has shrunk. The ocean it trusted has become misleading. The torpedo dips slightly, then levels out. Another attempt to regain stability. It doesn't work. The guidance loop begins to fold in on itself. Without a clean picture, the system falls back into search behavior. The once confident intercept line unravels into a widening arc. On the screen, the track starts drifting away from the carrier's projected path. The time to intercept no longer counts down. Now it starts moving the other way. At 5:38, the contact loses lock completely. The sound drops beneath the threshold for reliable tracking. One final return flickers across the display, then disappears into background noise and thermal layers. The room remains silent. No cheers, no visible relief. No one moves too early. They wait. A few more seconds pass. No reacquisition. Another sweep confirms it. The torpedo has lost the carrier. Whether it runs out of energy, shuts itself down, or fades into the deep no longer matters. Its danger is over. Only then does the captain order the posture to ease. Systems step down in sequence, retracing the same path they followed on the way up. Safeties re-engage. Mechanisms return to standby. Above, the ocean still looks unchanged. To anyone watching from a distance, nothing at all appears different. But below the surface, the most dangerous moment of the morning has already come and gone. And it ended not with impact, but with the machine realizing it no longer understood where to go. At 5:39, the sea returns to silence. Not true silence. Ships are never fully quiet. But the particular tension that had compressed every decision into seconds is gone. The displays settle. The last strange returns dissolve into clutter and thermal layers. The water takes its secrets back. No one celebrates. Inside the Combat Information Center, posture eases one step at a time. Not completely. Not yet. The transition is careful, controlled, as if the ship itself is making sure the danger is truly finished before loosening its grip. The carrier stays on course. That matters. A victory that forces a change in direction still gives something away. This one does not. The ship continues exactly where it was headed, at exactly the speed it intended to keep. The escorts remain close, spacing unchanged. No one peels away, no one surges ahead. The formation holds until certainty replaces assumption. At 5:41, confirmation arrives from multiple sensors. No reacquisition, no residual guidance signal, no secondary contact. The torpedo is gone. Whether it exhausted its power, shut itself down, or drifted harmlessly into the deep may never be publicly known, and it doesn't need to be. The result that matters has already been recorded. The captain gives another short order, not to respond with force, not to pursue, to document. Across the ship, systems begin collecting everything: timestamps, sensor logs, waveform captures, environmental conditions. Every second of the encounter is preserved, encrypted, and stored. This is not about headlines. This is about memory. Below decks, analysts are already reconstructing the launch profile. Bearing is traced back. Speed curves are mapped. Guidance behavior is compared against known patterns. The picture sharpens quickly. The source is no mystery. It never really was. Above the waterline, the flight deck resumes its rhythm. Chains are checked. Crews return to maintenance. To anyone outside the ship, the carrier looks unchanged, just another vessel cutting through open ocean. But inside, something has shifted. At 5:47, airborne surveillance assets quietly reposition. No announcement follows, none is needed. Attention turns outward, not with emotion, but with calculation. Beneath the surface, the launch platform, wherever it is, has already been located. Not engaged, located. That difference matters, because what happened here was not a battle in the dramatic sense. It was a demonstration, a reminder that restraint is not weakness, and that a modern carrier does not have to fire to control the space around it. The opposing side learns that lesson without a single blast. They now know something they did not know before. They know their shot was seen. They know it was tracked. They know it failed. And they know why. At 6:02, the ship's internal posture returns fully to normal. Watches rotate. Coffee mugs reappear. Conversations return in low voices. The crew moves on because that is what professionals do when danger passes. But the encounter does not truly end here. The data gathered in those minutes will travel much farther, into simulations, into training programs, into future doctrine. The torpedo that failed this morning will influence the response to the next one, launched elsewhere by someone paying close attention. Because the message delivered here was not emotional. It was mathematical. A message written in probabilities, not rhetoric. You can fire, we will see it. You can aim, we will break the chain. And if you choose to push further, you will do it knowing exactly how visible you are. The carrier continues forward, unchanged in heading, unchanged in purpose. Behind it, the water closes. Above it, the sky stays empty. And somewhere below the surface, a weapon built to destroy one of the most protected ships afloat disappears without ever reaching it. No return fire, no damage, just a quiet shift in the balance of power.